WaveStreet. My name is Danny Bernstein, and this is our third gathering of Creative Mornings Monterey Peninsula. Creative Mornings, if you're not familiar with it, is a company. It's a global company based in New York. It's been around for over 15 years. And there are 25,000 people every month around the world that meet like this. Raise your hand if you're from another chapter. I think we have a couple people. Yeah. And so that's another amazing part of Creative Mornings is that actually how I learned about Creative Mornings was from a friend of mine who's one of these digital nomads. And meaning she doesn't have an anchor. She doesn't live anywhere. And I asked her, when you end up in a new place, how do you find your people? And she gave me all these things. She said, well, one of the things I always do is I look for Creative Mornings. And then I started to research it and figured out maybe we need something like that here. And so that's a little bit of how this came about. And so it's our third meeting. And the goal basically, I think there are a bunch of them, but the goal is to lift our creative community. I think there's some other goals that have kind of revealed themselves as well. We have a lot of fragmentation in the area. It's something I talk about. A lot of things. We have Salinas Valley separate from Monterey Peninsula. We have county boundaries. We have professional boundaries. We have age boundaries. I meet a lot of students. I meet a lot of artists who don't have connections to people of different generations. And there's a lot of those fragmentations. There's artists here who don't have connections to potential backers. There are artists here who don't have a storefront because the economics of having a storefront in Carmel are super impacted by people, for example, who have a storefront but don't need it to be a business. If you think about what that does to an artistic community. And so those are the kinds of things that we want to do to bring people together. So that's a little bit of the why. And I think we're still kind of getting a sense of what that why is. I have some goals for this community long term, like I'd love to see more students here, for example, of graduate students, but also undergraduate students. We have a high schooler here as well, or high school, college. It's somewhere in between. It's kind of ambiguous. But that's a goal of mine as well, because we have sort of a hidden student population on the Monterey Peninsula, and that's, I think, is something that we can help as a community. So that's going to be a long-term goal of mine as well, as to how we can think about bringing that out. Go to the next slide. So me, I'm now I'm sort of a adopted native, let's say. I feel really connected to this area. I grew up in San Francisco, but this has really become my inevitable place to borrow something from. Oh, thank you. That's a Robinson Jeffers quote, that we came here without knowing it was our inevitable place, and really excited to connect with you all. So today, before I start on the programming, I'll go to the next slide, Lucas. We have some sort of sponsors who are helping underwrite this. As you note, this was a free event, so thank you to them. We can keep going. We also are open to additional sponsors as well. So this is easy. If you feel like you want to give, or if you know a business that you think would help a little bit, so please consider it. And if you have ideas, you can feel free to reach out to me. So the theme of this month for Creative Mornings is endurance. And endurance is gosh, what an idea. And every month around the world, all the Creative Mornings chapters are pivoting off of the same theme. And then they're sort of left to interpret that. And so when we received this chapter, actually the first thing I did was I reached out to somebody from the Big Sur Marathon to see if they would come and speak and talk about their journey building the marathon. I wasn't able to find anybody, but then I ended up kind of going on a bit of like this sort of intellectual journey of thinking about what made sense. And I met a couple of amazing people who agreed to participate with us today. And the first is named Colleen Flanagan. And Colleen, why don't you come up here? Hey, Colleen. And so I think you'll get really clearly Colleen's connection to endurance. And so I want to thank Colleen for participating today. And she's been working on an artistic project that dates back, over a decade now from its beginning. And so it's an incredible story of endurance and resilience. So Colleen, why don't you take it away? Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for welcoming me today. It's great to be here. I was actually raised a lot in Corral de Chera Oaks and have been come and gone, and now I'm back for a while. I want to start with a poem by my dad, Patrick Flanagan, from 2001. The Heavy World. The world is a heavy place of stone and water, resting on the shoulders of Atlas, or carried on the back of a turtle, or called forth from the great void by a whirlwind god who rested after 6 days of labor. The world is a heavy place with windstorms and fires, avalanches and earthquakes, floods and great waves to blow us away, bury us without celebration, or wash us into unfathomed depths. The world is a heavy place of strife and hate and killing based on color or creed, tribe or ancestor. Ancient wrongs, real or imagined, drive us to curses and destruction, sorrows and tears. The world is a heavy place, but the courage of a blade of grass, the hope of a flower, or your smile remind me that it does not rest on my frail shoulders. Thank you. My dad was a very light person. I meant of light. Sorry. But that was heavy. And I share that with you because it's so hard to remember sometimes that we're not alone. And projects like this one, can we live stream still? Yes. That would be beautiful. Really took lots and lots of collaborators and marine life humans to make it happen. So you're hearing the hydrophone right now. It is truly live streaming from Cozumel, Mexico. It's called Zoe Living Sea Sculpture. Zoe means life in Greek, and it's named in honor of Zoe Anderson, who tragically died of a carbon monoxide leak in her home. And so there's sort of this beautiful metaphor that corals are being endangered, by carbon dioxide and climate change. And so this is a restoration project inspired by DNA helices. It is, the live stream really was brought about to help us diffuse it, right, and share it with the world, because especially I haven't been back in over a year for familial reasons, and it's wonderful for me to visit this home. And it is made through a process called mineral accretion. So it's an electrolytic process where a low volt direct current is running through the seawater, and this is negatively charged. There's a positive anode, but you're basically seeing 7 years now of minerals, calcium carbonate, magnesium hydroxide, depositing onto this rebar structure, and that becomes a natural substrate for corals to grow on. And then it's like a micro ecosystem. This is in an area that was hugely impacted by cruise tourism, pollution, climate change, and so it's part of a larger effort in the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef. Can you please go to? And I wanted to share, this is to give you a little progression. This is how it looked in 2016, and then this is how it looks in 2018. So you can see the rebar, and then you can see after some of the change. And so now we're in 23. So you can only imagine when you were seeing it live how much the minerals are growing. And because this is a evolution to Creative Mornings, I wanted to piggyback on what Eli Woolery was saying last week about AI. And the next slide shows we have a camera in the water, so we have to keep it clean. And it has a wiper that goes around periodically. And sometimes I was trying today again to manually, remotely get it to wipe. But if we didn't have the AI recognition, you'd have a lot of video recording of it blocking like this. Anyway, I know this is short, so this does recognize the arm and move it. I just wanted to share an innocuous use of AI that's really saving a lot of humans better uses. So I'm really excited to hear the music, and I wanted a few of you to, everybody reach under their chairs. There's a little gift from my dad and me. Not for everybody, there's 3, but if anyone wants them. My dad was a hematologist, oncologist, and a poet locally, and the illustrations, who got them? The illustrations, whoa, great. So go ahead. The illustrations are by Christine Crozier, who's another local artist who has COVID, or she would have been here today, and David McQueen, who is a photographer. So it's just an invitation to contemplation to help endure during disoriented hope, these times that we're living in now and always. No, just kidding. This is more about Oh yeah, the petition. So we have the threat of a fourth cruise pier to be built through our area for 2 or 3 years now. We're constantly fighting the corruption, really, because they've done environmental impact studies that say there aren't all these endangered species, there aren't all these endangered, which there's over 35 endangered corals, fishes in this zone. And so if anyone's interested to go there and sign that. And we've also started Cozumel Coral Conservatory as a coalition to keep bringing all of our efforts to be less fragmented and be able to finally say you can't put a fourth cruise pier through this. Okay, thank you.
Great. So I read an article in the Monterey County Weekly, and the reporter, Agata, is actually here, right there. And it talked about a world-class artist who's living in Corral del Tierra and putting on performances out of her home. And that really resonated with me because, you know, I'm a world-class bullshit artist who moved here to do things as well. I'm just kidding. So, you know, I think it's really incredible that we have access to someone like Cindy, because not only is she this incredible performer, but she has a really interesting story to tell about what it's like to be an artist in Monterey County. So what's going to happen is when she's going to come out pretty soon, and she's going to introduce a piece, and then she's going to perform right here. And then her and I are going to have a conversation about her experience here. And we're going to try to, I mentioned this last month, we're going to try to recreate a bit of the conversation that her and I had when we met, which really made a huge impression on me. So without further ado, Cindy. I think you're all feeling something like, wow, it's amazing to have a world-class violinist where we live. But this is unusual, right? And so the first question I have for you is, you're living far from traditional music hubs here in Monterey County. And you know, what is that like? What challenges has that presented for you? What opportunities maybe as well?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So feel free to follow up if there's any part you want me to elaborate. But so I feel like that question, and also talking about that it is far from the traditional hub. I personally don't really believe in that, of differentiating that way. I think everywhere is the same because everywhere is different. New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco would not be the same. You know the challenge of presenting music in LA, traffic. It would be like, how do we get the people from Santa Monica to come to downtown? You know, like, and then if we're gonna do a concert in the Getty, you know, would the people East LA want to go, Pasadena, you know? And then same thing with New York is, you know, like, New York is, the bigger problem is because there's so much going on. You know, how do people prioritize their time? I mean, I know there are people, you know, that are so immersed in the art and music in this town, and they feel like, there's so much going on, what do we choose to do? Well, in New York, it's even crazier, okay? Like, every block has, like, you know, 500 violinists trying to play. So I think that if you see that everything is different, and then you sort of learn about it with an open heart, because, you know, what else is exactly the same? People are people. People's hearts are people's hearts. The way people listen, and there are always challenges. There are always challenges of stigma, and then people's assumptions, and a lot of times that, you know, I'm a Buddhist, so I very much believe in, like, there are two sides of things. It's like, you know, something that looks like an advantage or maybe a strength, very much on the other side is the weakness. But at the same time, what you see is a weakness might be an advantage or an opportunity. So I would say, you know, like, maybe think even more philosophically about this kind of this thought about what is it, you know, whatever your question was, I already forgot.
Yeah, well, what is place? I mean, it's a little bit of like this idea. You can turn my mic down. It's a little maybe too loud for me. But I think this idea of just what is place, and the idea of being in a place like this. I have a loud voice, so I'm not really used to mics. So and you started something called Sunkissed Mozart. How many are you How many folks are familiar with Sankis Mozart? Quite okay. So that you're going to learn about something from Cindy here, and it'd be great to talk a little about you started something. You're a startup founder. You're an entrepreneur as well as a musician. It'd be wonderful to hear about this project and what inspired you to do it, and maybe what are some of the things you've learned along the way.
So I would say I'm also a firm believer of there's no revolutional, there's evolutional. So I didn't just start a startup. I was a person that loved organizing since in my school days when nobody asked me to organize. I was like organizing my own groups, and then it's like, oh, we want to coach with this teacher, and then why don't we make a program that's about death? I mean, that's true story. I was like, so I loved making programs, and I love putting people together. I love to see the fireworks that happens between this musician, that musician, or putting this piece next to that piece from the get-go. So. And then throughout the last, I would say almost 20 years, I have done so much organizing, creating concerts every opportunity I got, including when I was teaching at USC. I would make my students participate in these programs that I would create, and sometimes I would experiment with different programming, and then sometimes talking about music as well. I wasn't always good at it. So when I started Sankis Mozart, it actually was during COVID when usually I'm so busy, like I couldn't possibly think about starting something from the ground up. I play 60 concerts, and I'm usually, when I'm home, I would love to do nothing, not even listen to music. So during COVID, when there was a huge need for musicians to continue to be who they are, which is sharing music with people. And then that's also the time when my husband and I, we were thinking about relocating, actually right before COVID, coming back to California from New York City. So we picked here because my husband went to DLI, and then we love this place. I've performed here, so we want to live here. And so we just moved here, and then but that sort of changed our house requirement. So we had to find a house not only has an indoor concert space, because that's always been a dream, is to have my own concert at home, which is what people like Mozart, Beethoven, a lot of people in history used to do. It's a place for you to explore music, have your friends, or musicians that you love, and then present them. So this is not a new idea. It's something that has always existed. I've wanted to bring back. And then in COVID, then we needed an outdoor space. So that's why we have a yard that we actually present a concert with an amazing view that is the backdrop of the musicians. But how I started this concert series, very different from everything I've ever done, is part of two things. One thing that's very important for me is in COVID, a lot of musicians have felt like we were left dry. How do you say it? So yeah, so we actually felt like, including people are thinking about the restaurant workers, but how about all of us that depend on one concert to the next? Nobody is responsible for paying us if the concert is canceled. Of course, there are many people that were very supportive, many organizations that actually did pay partial of the fee, but half of a fee out of 50 concerts you play, you can barely eat. So anyway, so I wanted to support my own community. So I started this series, and then all of our donations go to the performing musicians, because that's almost never been done before. Everything will lose overhead to venue, to a part-time staff member, stagehand, and then including I've heard that at Lincoln Center, because I work there most of the time, that if the mic comes out for the directors to speak, $1,500. This is before the musicians were paid $1,500 per person, right? So I wanted to do something that the people making the music, which is what the concerts are about, get paid the most. Is that a crazy dream? Why is that a crazy dream, right? Thank you. So the other thing that I wanted to do is kind of relating to your first question is, what is my concept? Because what I do is I call it omakase style. So when you go to omakase, you order omakase at a Japanese restaurant, you're saying chef's choice. And then the chef is going to look at the ingredients that he or she has that day and then come up with, maybe also work a little bit with what you like, but I don't do that. No, I'm just kidding. So, but actually, so they would design what is the best way they would want to present, right? So my home concert series, Sunkist Mozart, we don't tell people while we play. And we ask them to trust us. We ask them to believe that we are the master chef that you would like to have a meal with, and let us decide how and what we show you. And so, of course, that's also something that doesn't happen out there. And I wanted to see whether it's possible. Like worst case scenario. Thankfully, we don't pay for the venue. I mean, mortgage, but we don't pay like the rental for the venue. So you lose that money, pay the musicians. Fine. But so far, I just can't believe. I feel so lucky that people trust that much, and then every single concert I see people just loving and then feeling humored and feeling enriched, and there's, I always call it sparkly-eyed. We have all these people that are looking like every piece of information, no matter it's like a joke or it's like some actually historic things that you don't even want to sit in class listening to. Everything, people are sparkly-eyed. I feel very thankful to have this connection with people.
That's great. So this area in particular, Monterey Peninsula, Monterey County, what is your perspective, someone now who's living here, who's participating in artistic community, like what do you think about our community, and what are some things that people here obviously care about the creative community? What are some things that we can do to help support it?
There's one thing I feel like would be worth sharing, which is actually something that's not about this community, but I think all of us could hear this. So my mentors and bosses, the directors of Lincoln Center Chamber Music Society, they founded Music in Menlo, an amazing, the best chamber music festival, one of the very best chamber music festivals in the whole world. In my lifetime, it's only about, when I went as a student, that's maybe about their 5th year. So the festival maybe is only like 20 years old or something. So the story was shared with me from their former executive director. So she told me that when they first came out with the first year's program, and then so they made the physical program, and then the front says, or maybe in the back, somewhere to try to encourage people to come. It's like, oh, come listen to some music and enjoy some wine on the Sunday, whatever, And then so my boss mentor, they looked at it, And then this is the Emerson Quartet's cellist, legendary, like 18-time Grammy winner or whatever. So he looked at it, he's like, no, we're not here to have a nice time and free wine. We're here because our music is amazing. We work in every way possible to make our art amazing, and we believe in it. We don't need to sell it with free wine. So that's something that, and I heard the story about 20 years later. And then there's something that just strikes me, I mean, don't you think that's what relates to our community a little bit? Like, if you create an event and you're like, oh, come, there's a free wine, and then there's all of this and whatever. Okay, so people are attracted to the free wine and come to the thing. Do they love your music? We don't know. And so what you want is also, because also a story completely about music in Menlo. So my dear friend, who are still my host family to this day after 20 years, they told me that they also did an event, so like a house concert for the festival to try and bring more people to come to the festival. So they sort of did the thing, right? Party and then wine and whatever, and then they invited 70. They were able to gather 70 of their friends to come to this house concert that they did themselves. Nobody came back to the festival. Right. And of course, that, out of 70, how many do you think might have a chance of falling in love with the music if they came here for the wine? Well, I would say maybe 5. I mean, of course, that's still valuable. That's still like valuable. But you should be thinking about who do you want to have that's going to fall in love with what you are actually about, not to somehow, walk by the street and see free wine and walk in and then take the wine and leave, right? So is that a good answer? I mean,
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So if I reflect on a little bit, there's a lot of intermingling of fill in the blank, wine, cheese, other accoutrements that relate to our art scene. We have an art and wine walk, where basically you're enticed to go into galleries because of what? Free wine. You have to pay to go on the art walk, I guess. But so are we watering down our art product here? Do we have a credible art product here?
Well, those are not my words. I'm not. No, I refuse to answer that question.
Yeah.
No, actually, I actually think it would be. It's not possible we don't have some amazing art here. And then, but do we actually make people see that?
Do we build the connections?
Right.
Between
Do we
people
build
and the art?
Exactly?
Do we put too many obstacles in the way, basically?
I mean, which is also, I'm not saying wine is not amazing. I mean, I just did an event where the musicians and the sommelier, were all flown in on a private jet together, and then,
Sounds terrible.
and the chefs, okay? Yeah. But yeah, and then so what he showed the crowd, absolutely amazing, and then, which is, so not anything there, I remember our conversation, I kept saying the word authentic, like there's something very important about what are you about, you don't have to be all like the best in the whole world, but you can be something, this is also what I teach my students, that my favorite thing about music is everything about music can be applied to life, like in a very philosophical way. I tell my students, for those of you that know music, you must know the marking forte and piano, right? So it's the marking that shows it's supposed to be kind of strong or kind of weak, right? Soft or loud. That's the simplified way of people talk about. But I always say, piano is not a less forte. Piano is more of something else. Forte and fortissimo means more forte, but fortissimo is not more forte. Fortissimo, so the way I would teach them is fortissimo is maybe it's crazy, maybe it feels so overjoyed or so angry. And forte might be joyful and festive, right? You see in the elevation of the emotional content expression that you can differentiate that. And piano is not just less joyful, less festive. No, piano is intimate and warm and lyrical. And pianissimo is not also just softer. Pianissimo literally means more piano. So pianissimo is scared, fragile, frail, dying. Right? So everything is more of something. Okay, why am I teaching you how to play music? Okay, next question.
Yeah, great.
Kind
of related to that, yeah, definitely. Related to that, so we have audience members here. We have consumers, and backers of art. We have artists in the room as well. We have musicians. We have painters. We have sea sculpturists and things like that. We're on that continuum. How can we forge a more authentic connection to the art? Like, what can we do to build stronger connections? What can we do to demand more authentic connections and more authentic sort of products in this area?
Well, that I can't answer for other people. I only know how to work on my own stuff. Because I sort of. So any artist or any kind of art maker, some sort of art, I feel like the process, the entire life journey is very critical. It's like you're constantly, like when we play the violin, like we're not. So one of my students from a long time ago said that the best compliment she's ever gotten from me was not terrible. I mean, I'm not like yelling or like that mean, but it's like, that's actually the mindset we're always in. Like we're constantly looking for what is better, right? This one is out of tune, that one's out of rhythm, and then this one is just like, sound quality is terrible, and then that's the wrong expression. I think, I don't know about other art, but in music, like, remember a concert I played actually last year, and then an audience member came up to me and asked me, "It looks so easy for you. What is your secret?" Right? And I said, my secret is I never thought it was easy. And I felt like it was so hard. So I constantly worked because I wanted to be easy. And then so I think the path to good is having that struggle, I think. Like you constantly feel like it's not there. You constantly think it's not beautiful while you work toward it. It's probably going to get slightly more beautiful, I think. Yeah.
It's wonderful. And so maybe my last question is, what motivates you through that? You may have stagnation, you may have ruts. You're human, I think. But what is that motivation? Like, what provides you with that enduring characteristic?
Well, of course, that's a very hard one, but I will also, I don't know why I talk so much about teaching today. I mean, I wouldn't teach like that much. I mean, I was a professor at USC, but I remember, because the life is so hard as a searching musician. I mean, even just like I always say, the 15 years of playing the violin is just to stop looking stupid when you play. But anyway, so it's such a hard life, and then how do you know when you feel so badly about yourself and what do you do? And I always tell them, you take the tiniest little action, no matter how tiny, a little action that's going to be a step in the positive direction, whatever that is. And I usually follow that with, and the answer is always practicing. Because that's always, when you don't know, where's my career gonna go? What is my next meal? Or whatever it is, I'll tell you why the answer is always practicing. Because practicing, if you get good, you don't know when that's gonna be, but maybe in 5 weeks, somebody's gonna discover how good you are and then give you the next gig, right? And why is practicing always the answer? Because in the practicing, you're figuring out all these things and thinking, you might come up with the next big idea, about what you're gonna do. And you're definitely, that's definitely better than sitting there and do nothing, right? So when you don't know what to do, practice. And I don't know what that means about people and what they do, but what each of you does. What is grammar? Sorry. But I think this tiniest little positive direction, no matter when you're stopping there, you stop, you don't know what to do, just think about whatever is that little step. It can include just doing something to keep yourself happy. I think that's important. If you feel like shit, is that allowed? Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, is this PG-13 or whatever? But yeah, so if you feel like shit, and that's not gonna help anything. So even if you can do something that makes you feel a little bit better, that is a positive step. And I feel like that's all you can do, because you can't be going from nothing to having everything. You can't go from having only negative $15 to having $15 million. And so you can only look at what is the next step in front of you.
Cindy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us be one of your steps and joining us. It's amazing. If the audience wants to attend Sunkist Mozart in the future, I know it sells out like quite in advance, but how would they find you?
Yeah, we only have like 10 seats left for the rest of the season, like 10 seats like total. So grab them quick. So skmozart.com. That's our website, and then you guys are all welcome to join our mailing list. We're working on doing something more public and have more space so more people can come and enjoy our music if you want to. And then just like I said, if people don't want, I just don't
That's
do
okay.
something else. It's
Yeah,
fine.
it is nice.
Keep practicing, right?
Yeah, awesome. Great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I'm just going to give you a sense of what to expect in the next few months. In November, we're back to our early morning, and we have newlywed Zach Weston joining us from the Weston Collective, one of the first families, let's say, of photography in the area, and more to come on kind of the rest of the program. And then December, we have a very unique session from Dr. Susan Swick, who is running the Ohana Children's Mental Health Facility, which is a new facility, and she is apparently an extraordinary speaker. So that should be very interesting. It'll be a bit of a different thing, but we'll supplement it with what feels quite familiar. And then in January, we have Meredith, who's in the second row right there, who's going to be talking about Rise. And so that'll be amazing to have somebody who's been such a close participant in our community from the beginning. Thank you to everyone who helped pull this together, all the volunteers, and we'll see you in November. Thanks, everybody.